YouTube? This is Darkspineslayer, and today, guys, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the latest entry in quite a venerable series. Might have created a genre or two, I don't know. The Legend of Zelda, and the latest incarnation of that being A Link Between Worlds for the Nintendo 3DS. And, what can I say? It's Zelda. It marks a deliberate return to the classic formula and the most directly in the fan favorite A Link to the Past. This is, in a way, a sequel about as much as you could expect a Zelda title to be a sequel. It takes place hundreds of years in the future, but you're in the same world that you explored in A Link to the Past. It has evolved quite a bit. It's not a copy of the original world map by any means, but definitely a marked return to the style of the classic Zelda titles, and I think that is just great. I enjoy the classic formula a little bit more. It doesn't take itself quite as seriously. It's more interesting to just screw around, explore the world. But to get into it, I mean, Zelda top down. You move around with the circle pad. You can move the camera a little bit with the D-pad to see around, which really helps in some of the puzzles. Items map to X and Y. Swing your sword. A does something, I think. Swing your sword, raise your shield, use your items. It's classic Zelda. If you ever played the classic Link to the Past, you know what to expect. It feels a lot like that, and that's no mistake. In other territories, it's known as, I believe Japan calls it Triforce of the Gods 2, or whatever the original Japanese title was. But yeah, pretty standard controls. They have changed a little bit. Your Pegasus boots and shield are mapped to the shoulder buttons, and makes combat a little more engaging than just stop swinging your sword. You'll actually defend yourself. You actually have to defend yourself. But the new mechanic, the one they advertised quite heavily in the game, being the painting system, where you flatten against a wall and you can travel along the wall as a 2D painting that's somewhat reminiscent of the Zelda 2 art style. I don't know. I do know that this mechanic was... The painting mechanic being surprisingly well thought out, actually. Just watching gameplay video, I thought it would be just, gimmick, just use it for a couple puzzles and you're done. The way they weave this kind of mechanic into the puzzles and the dungeon design gives us some of the best dungeon design in the series. It really kind of forces a different way of thinking about the not combat, well, it has applications in combat, but really kind of forces a little more three-dimensional thinking when it comes to puzzles, like how do I get across the river? There's no hookshot point, there's no boat, I don't have the Zora flippers yet. Oh, hey, there's a wall right there. Perhaps I can cross that way. And that kind of creative use of this new way to travel across the world just really kind of fed the dungeon design and made some really, really creative, really quite fun to play dungeons. And onto the dungeons now. Like the game is amazingly open. It gives you a ton of player agency, and that, like, you can do dungeons in every order, and that is a lot thanks to a new item rental system. you meet a character early in the game who crashes in Link's place, and a little ways into the game, after you beat one of the dungeons, after you beat one of the dungeons, he opens up a shop, and from that shop you can pay this character rupees to rent, or a little further into the game, purchase items. And what items you purchase, I mean, this is pretty early in the game. The items you choose to rent or purchase can shape the dungeon order in just about any way you want. There are a few prerequisites here and there, but more or less it's pretty open, and that's really kind of a triumph and a flaw of the game in a very big way. That kind of openness is something I've thought Zelda has needed for a long time, and to kind of just throw you into a gameplay that we've lost since games like Ocarina of Time. But with that kind of openness does come the cost of a little bit of that sense of discovery. As you're going through a dungeon, you're not going to find a new item. I mean, this is the way you find your items, is through this character, and you're not going to find... You're going to go into a dungeon, and you're going to go through the dungeon. Sure, the dungeon is amazingly well designed and uses the item it needs in creative, interesting ways, but you can't really, you don't look forward to finding a brand new crazy item and, having to figure out the applications of that item. How does that item work? What can I do with this? How can I use this to my advantage in combat? That kind of thing. And that kind of discovery, in a way, is very, very much lost in this Zelda title. I mean, it does give us a certain level of freedom and a different kind of discovery for it in exchange for that lost sense of amazement, but it did nag at me a little bit through the game. Visually, this game is very... well, yeah, it's impressive. It does its job. It's clean. It's colorful. It's definitely personality, full of personality, and definitely keeps the spirit of the original Link to the Past that it's trying to follow up on very successfully. And it also does that very well through the music in the game, which is typical Zelda music, a lot of it remixed classics. You'll hear Kakariko Village, you'll hear the Hyrule Overworld in glorious orchestra. And even, I don't want to spoil too much, even the Other World, Low Rule, remixes the Dark World theme, and as you explore different areas, you'll hear different themes, and for the old guy who played, the older gamers who may have played Link to the Past in their childhood, they might get a bit of a tear to their eye. There was one, I'd have to admit I'm not the hugest Zelda fan, but I have 3 games under my belt now, but I gotta admit, even there was one moment where I'm just like, oh man, that is just fucking amazing music. But anyway, presentation, amazing. Openness, amazing. The degree of freedom they give you and the lack of hand-holding, much, much needed refreshment to the... I don't want to say tired Zelda formula, but it definitely needed shaking up. It does have its flaws. It does give a little away in exchange for that openness, but overall, a very, very impressive outing. If you have a 3DS, buy it. If you don't have a 3DS, buy a 3DS, buy it. It's probably one of my favorite Zelda games in the series, and even though I only have 3 under my belt, I've played just about all of them. Not the CDI games. But, anyways, Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. Buy it. Until next time, stay classy, YouTube.